Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Henry Duran. How are you today, Henry?
I'm good, man. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's been many years since we've seen each other, obviously through the intermediation of digital technology, but nice seeing you nonetheless. How old are you and where are you from?
I'm 36 years old. I'm from San Bernardino, California. It's about an hour east of LA. It's in the Inland Empire.
Yes, very nice place, also very hot.
It gets pretty hot in the summer. And a lot of us try to go to the beach, Orange County, even LA, San Diego to escape the heat in the summer.
What do you do for a living?
I just started residency as an internal medicine doctor out in the desert. It took a long time, and it's still weird to say it, but I'm a doctor.
That's great news. Great to hear. I know when we first met, that was your goal. I was going to say dream, but obviously it wasn't a dream because you made it. It's a reality now. You want to give us a little bit of the story behind you wanting to be a doctor and how you became one? Just because it's such a magnificent story of success and what one could achieve if they put their mind and heart into something.
Sure. Growing up, I wasn't really into school. After high school, I figured I'd go to college. Went to community college. Didn't really like anything except for history. I really liked history. I ended up majoring in history, thought I'd be maybe like a high school history teacher or work in a museum or go to law school. I ended up graduating in history. I was working in education as a math school program coordinator at an elementary school. I substitute taught, including high school, and I realized education, at least in the K through 12, was not for me. And to be a college history professor also didn't really seem to be right for me either. I interned at a law firm, hated it, and I did some soul searching after a while. My brother was interested in medicine. My little brother, he was majoring in biology. Was never really hugely into the sciences, but I was getting into nutrition. I was trying to be healthy. I grew up overweight, so I was getting really into nutrition, getting into health in general, into longevity. And my brother mentions like, why don't you become a doctor? I mean, you're getting really into this stuff. I honestly never thought about it until after college. So I went and shadowed a physician in my area, an endocrinologist, and everyone was really happy to know that I spoke Spanish. In my community, a lot of people speak Spanish with limited English speaking skills. The patients seemed super happy as well, the doctors, and it was just cool to be able to help people with their health and to be a nice guy, because I think at baseline, my natural, I prefer to just be a nice guy and people just be nice to each other. And, being a lawyer was not something that's going to allow me to be a nice guy. So, and I just, one of the reasons I didn't want to become a teacher was that you're not constantly learning. You do learn a little bit more, but you're constantly teaching the same thing. And I realized from so many different jobs and so many parts of my life that I get bored pretty quickly and I need to be constantly learning. So I realized that I was a lifelong learner, and medicine really not only allows that, but really demands that, to be constantly learning on the new technologies. And there's so much to know in medicine.
Well said. And I think it's important that you demonstrated the ability to change and to focus on searching for something that fit who you are as a person, as opposed to just wanting to follow a given script that had been given to people such as yourself, where you're like, I like history. What do history majors do? You either become a high school teacher or you go to law school, right? So if you're into the humanities and you're literary, into books and just verbose and high vocabulary, you tend to just gravitate easily towards law school. And so you giving people the idea that it's okay to go off the beaten path and go against certain scripts that are given to you and really focus on pursuing something that might be different, but fits more into your personality and who you are and who you want to become. Is that something that you want to sort of get into? Just the feeling that you had around going to medical school and pursuing that, even when you were already kind of older than the majority of people who pursue medical school?
Sure. I don't really regret it because I think at that age, I was also of the mindset that, money isn't everything or your career isn't everything. And I still feel that way. And I know to get into medical school is extremely challenging. You have to sacrifice so much in, college and internships and research. And so to be able to do that, you need to kind of really start at a pretty young age. At high school, early high school, you kind of need to be taking honors classes. to be prepared to, take these tough sciences, organic chemistry, biology, and not just, pass, but you need to get A's for the most part. B for medical school, especially in these required prereqs. These aren't good grades, right? So you need A minuses. You need a upper 3.0 GPA to be competitive for medical school, especially in places where I wanted to go, like Southern California, be close to home. So it was tough. But, I had a lot of fun in my 20s also. Definitely before I decided to pursue that track at, age 23. But even afterwards, where I was pre-med, I would take extended travel, vacations, the summers and winters to different parts of Mexico, Argentina, Cuba, and then a little bit before medical school, I went to Colombia for 40 days, was in Japan for a little while, and, go out on the weekends and just have different hobbies and make friends and be in the dating market, dating girls. I had a lot of fun too.
A man of many facets, skills, and aptitudes, huh? I also wanted to show my appreciation to you because you were one of the first people that was really into nutrition and taught me a lot about nutrition, health, longevity. So before you, I had only dabbled in that world. And after meeting you and seeing how knowledgeable you were, but also the results, just because you showed me pictures and you told me about where you had come from, I got really into it. And today I am very fit and super into intermittent fasting. And you're the person that got me into keto. I had never heard of ketosis. I had never heard of paleo diets. I had never heard of any of that. And the way that you broke it down and just made it accessible to me, and the way that we would have conversations around that really changed my life, really. Changed my perspective on how I wanted to deal with my diet, nutrition, with fitness, exercise, etc. So I don't know if I hadn't met you, if I would have taken down this journey of self-preservation of health, longevity, health span. So, wanted to thank you and show my appreciation to you for that. Now, do you want to get a little bit into how we met? Just because I think that's a fun story.
Yeah. Sure. So I was in Oakland. After college, I moved up there. I took a position with AmeriCorps, Community Health Corps, which is basically a domestic Peace Corps, working with underserved communities at a federally qualified health clinic. And I liked it up there, so I wanted to stay up there for pre-med classes. I did a postbac at Mills College, but I was also substitute teaching, and so then that's where I met you. And I was looking for a new room to rent. My lease was ending, and you say, "Hey, I actually have a room," and we just linked up. And I moved in.
And talking about nice guys, you were, one of those people where it was a little bit jarring just because I grew up in Queens and New York City, and East Coast people tend to be a little rough around the edges and just hard nosed. And, you put up this facade of toughness, and you were just always genuinely nice and kind and always with a smile. And I gravitate towards that because inside I'm really like that. But I have some issues around expressing that just because of the way that I grew up. And I'm sure you also understand being a Latino man also sort of militates against that sort of personality. But I gravitated towards you because you were so nice too and genuine.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
What are your hobbies?
So during second year of medical school, I tried jujutsu. I was getting into it. I was starting to get into MMA, UFC, and it's just always my brother was into it, and I knew it was like a really good form of self-defense. As I've heard a lot of times that in real street fights, people oftentimes just end up on the ground, and so I tried it. I've also tried kickboxing in the past, and it's just a little too aggressive, and I don't want to get hit in the head. Not only does it hurt, but I don't want any brain damage either. But I went and tried it, and I just liked it. It was really tough, and to see these small guys who are even smaller than me, I'm not a big guy, who don't even have that much experience, just dominate me was just a huge eye-opening experience. I didn't realize how vulnerable I was walking around. And, I was with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I realized that, that we wanted to get married, we wanted to have kids, and that's maybe a very traditional mindset of mine, but as a man, I'm the protector, and the worst worst thing that could happen is something to happen to my wife or kids, and for me not to be able to defend. So I want to give myself a chance at defending my family. It's just in my mind, there's something more important than that. So I tried it. Everyone was actually super nice. I mean, we're teaching me that it requires a lot of grit, but I had some of that, and it took even more grit to continue with it, to become half decent at it. So that's my main hobby now is jiu-jitsu. Been doing it for about 3 years. I'm a blue belt, which is the second belt out of 5 belts. It goes white, purple, brown, black. I go, depending on my work or school, go pretty much as much as I can, honestly.
Okay.
Whether it's a couple times a week or 10 classes a week.
Do you think this will be a lifelong hobby and pursuit of yours?
I don't ever see myself stopping, even if I'm an old man, and that's the goal. Each time I train, I want to preserve my limbs, preserve my joints, and I try not to have an ego about it. If someone catches me and I'm starting to feel some pain, or I feel like, hey, this could turn real bad in my knee or my hips, I'll tap.
No.
I mean, I'll fight it, especially if I trust my I know the partner I'm training with, and I know they're not going to really seriously hurt me. I might fight it a little bit, including chokes. I'll fight those a little bit, but anything that's going to cause any kind of injury to me, I'll tap right away.
Yeah, not worth it. You already mentioned that you're married. You want to get a little bit into that?
So I met my wife as a first-year medical student on Bumble. This is during the pandemic. She was a first-year cardiology fellow doctor. So she had already finished her internal medicine residency 3 years, and she was isolating when we first met on Bumble. So she had a lot of time on her hands. She downloaded the app. We matched. We were talking for a while. She got the vaccine soon after. I think that same day we had our first date at a park. I just have to think about when we got married, because we actually got married December 6th of 2024, and we met December 6th, 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like you guys planned that. That's a very sweet story. You have children?
About 2 months after, maybe a month and a half after we got married, I found out she was pregnant. We cried.
Yeah.
We took like a month break, then just to get that alcohol out of our system from the honeymoon, and just try to be a little bit healthier before we started trying. And then she was pregnant right away, and so we have our first baby due early October.
Oh.
It's gonna be a boy.
Oh, congratulations, Henry Jr.
Thank you. I'm not a huge fan of Junior. I don't know, but I was supposed to be named Enrique.
Oh, wow.
From both my parents. Both my parents had Uncle Enrique's, and they were going to name me Enrique. And at the last minute, my dad, he decided to just give me the English version.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, we're in the U.S. now. Let's assimilate a little bit more. So they just made it Henry. And I'm happy with my name. Fortunately, I didn't have a middle name to give me options, and that's something I feel like I should have had. So we're definitely giving our baby a middle name, and I'm considering naming him Enrique, at least for his first or middle name. But something my wife and I have talked about is to have one English name and one Spanish name, just as a nod to my Mexican roots. Both my parents being from Sinaloa, Mexico. And then if he wants to go by his Spanish name, he wants to go by his English name. My mom, my cousins, and family in Mexico can call him by his Spanish name if they can pronounce it better.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable with that. If he wants to travel throughout Latin America and go by his Spanish name and just kind of not stick out so much as an American, that's also cool.
Is your wife also Hispanic?
She's not. She's white. She's from Missouri.
That's middle America white. What were your parents like growing up?
Very working class. My mom came over at the age of 25, and my dad came over at 17. Very working class in San Bernardino. My dad was just hard-ass Mexican dad. Very hard-ass. Never really showed much emotion other than maybe just anger. My mom stayed at home, and then there was a lot of turmoil at home, and they divorced. They separated when I was really young, maybe like 5 or 6. Wow. My dad moved away to the neighboring town, and then came back. Did that a few times. Then they got legally divorced maybe when I was like 9 or something, 9 or 10. From that point, I would just see my dad like every other weekend, Wednesday nights. He would pick us up, take us to baseball practice, Little League. He was our coach, and And so my brothers and I would spend every other weekend with him. So in a sense, I did kind of grow up with a single mom because I didn't see my dad a ton after that, but I knew my dad. I grew up in a two-parent home as a small child.
Do you get along with both of them today?
Yeah, I get along with my mom very well. And then my dad, growing up, I didn't get along with him very well, but as I got older, I kind of forgave him for a lot of things. He matured a lot. We stopped drinking. We'll go months without seeing each other, so we don't spend a ton of time together. We get along pretty good.
What was school like for you?
I didn't like school growing up. I would say elementary school was fine. It was good. I was a really good student, probably the top math student. Arithmetic came very easy to me. I always tried to do my work, but I liked messing around with my friends and making my friends laugh and just laughing. And I went to pretty good schools for elementary school, but then for middle school and high school, I went to some pretty rough schools, and I freaking hated it. There's a lot of gangs, a lot of kids from dysfunctional homes, and a lot of bullying, a lot of fights. And I was just, a lot of times, especially in high school, just trying to survive. So grades went down, and then high school, 9th, 10th grade really started to go down. I was just more focused. I really didn't care about school. I didn't think about the future. I was just more focused on girls, learning to play guitar, video game. I grew up obsessed with video games, but playing guitar, and I took that over maybe around 10th grade. It wasn't until 12th grade where it dawned upon me that I was going to be graduating into the real world. That I started to try to get some decent grades. My girlfriend at the time was going to college. I was somewhat serious about that. She was kind of getting on me and encouraging me to care more about school, but I didn't have the grades or definitely not the SAT scores to go to any decent college. So I went to community college, not just about saving money, but just because that was my only option. So I'm forever grateful to community college, and particularly the community college I went to in San Bernardino.
And then you transferred from the community college to a UC school, or?
To UC Riverside.
Okay.
I transferred to UC Riverside. I majored in U.S. history, 20th century, and I minored in ethnic studies, just because those are the subjects that have interested me the most. And it just seemed like if I wanted to be a high school history teacher, or a lawyer, work in a museum, ethnic studies would also be good for that.
So were you a good student while in college, community college, and then UC Riverside, or you still had a little bit of rough terrain to get to a point where your grades were good?
Yeah, so in community college, I wasn't really taking it all that serious in the beginning, but then I had some really rough, low-wage paying jobs in the beginning, and I said, after this, I'm going to focus on school. Did what I could to get the best grades I possibly could, and asked questions. I struggled in community college. Maybe a year into it, I kind of figured out how to be a decent student, be a good student, get good grades, and then I transferred to UT Riverside, and that was a whole nother level. I was really struggling, even with the lower division classes I was taking, barely passing classes, and then it probably took me a full 2 years to kind of figure out how to get A's in my classes, in my upper division history classes. So I did not graduate with the best GPA. So honestly, even if I wanted to go to grad school for history, it probably wasn't in the cards for me.
For medical school, you had mentioned Southern California. You want to tell me a little bit about your medical school experience?
Yeah, and just to get a little bit into that before medical school, because I graduated in 2011 U.S. history, and then I didn't start medical school until 2020. So it took a long time to take all those pre-med classes, and then when I started those biology and chemistry, they were the hardest classes I've ever taken in my life. I think I failed some of them. I got C's, and I had to retake them. And it was also another learning curve again. I had to learn how to study for these sciences. By the end of pre-med, I kind of got the hang of it. It took a long while, but I ended up did very well in the organic chemistry class. I loved that class. I ended up becoming a tutor at my old community college. So I kind of went full circle. I came back home, took organic chemistry there, became a tutor, and I just knew the subject really well. And then I applied to medical school with a very mediocre MCAT score, and UCR gave me a chance because they really wanted to place for the local area, and no other medical school actually gave me an interview with my very unimpressive GPAs, particularly my science GPA, and mediocre MCAT score. So I'm forever grateful to use the Riverside.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a matter of personal history as well, just showing the grit and conscientiousness that you have demonstrated by being able to go from community college UC Riverside history major, then having the wherewithal and the strength to take all those pre-med requirements. And so I think a lot of times we get bogged down in having a narrow view of what it means to be a particular type of person that fits into what a doctor is, or a lawyer, or engineer, or these high status professions. And we don't realize that a lot of it isn't just the test scores, a lot of it isn't just the cognitive capacity, but there's a lot of what it means to be a successful professional in hard work, conscientiousness, diligence, maturity. And so I think it's another example of how being a well-rounded individual can help you in the goals that you set for yourself and just going for it, right? What are your political views?
I used to be into politics quite a bit, college especially, majoring in history. And then I think after the first Trump election, I just was so over it. I was following it so closely, super interested, and I just was like, this is not really benefiting my life. So I just decided to, put it to the side and just try to stay a little bit up to date, but I just was over it. So I don't really follow politics too much. I would say I grew up, high school, college, very liberal, and then basically the older I got, the more, I would say closer to the center. And I will say, I still consider myself a very liberal person, but I feel like the country, especially younger people, have moved more and more to the left, and I kind of more or less stay put. And so now I'm kind of in the center. But I do consider myself having political views that are very similar to 1960s liberal MLK viewpoints.
How about your religious views?
I didn't grow up religious. My mom tried taking us to church. We fought a lot as little kids, and sometimes it just wasn't worth it for her. Tried to put us in Catholic school and stuff like that, or on Sundays, and we just hated it. And I think even as a small kid, I always questioned, and I think even as a small child, I think I was agnostic. But as I got older, maybe early 20s, I've come to really be respectful of people's religious views, as long as they're not harming anyone. I've gone to church with family, and I'm respectful. And like on vacations, I actually really enjoy going to old Catholic churches, or any kind of old church, any old churches from the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. It's like a huge thing I really enjoy doing. I'm just really impressed by the architecture. Now I just kind of try to learn about it more from just a sense of curiosity, from a historical or anthropological viewpoint, try to learn about religion. And a lifelong goal of mine is to read the Bible. I've never read it, and it's just such an important book in the history of our civilization, especially in the West. And if I'm going to say I'm at all interested in history of the world, I think it's reasonable to at least be somewhat familiar with the Bible. I took a religious studies class, one of my later pre-med classes. I just needed some other courses to fill up my schedule and keep improving my GPA. And it was totally fascinating. I'm interested in religion, but I wouldn't consider myself religious. I didn't grow up religious, and it's something that I want to keep learning about and be able to connect with patients and understand where they're coming from different religious views as well.